Hello and welcome to the Comedian's Paradise. This is the podcast where we speak to comedians, clowns, and comedy producers from across the comedy world. Now, today's guest is Martina Ipsa. She's come all the way from Slovenia. She's a veteran of the comedy scene, and we're going to find out what it takes to be an awesome, fantastic comedian in Slovenia. Please welcome Martina Ipsa.
Hello, and thank you for the intro. I mean, you don't even know if I'm good. Maybe I'm just old, and that's why I'm veteran. Because you were like, amazing, amazing comedian from Slovenia. Did you ever hear her shit? No, but it's cool.
It's funny you say that. I found, with so one of the things I found when you say that doing for a
Yeah,
while, I found with the podcast itself is different things. So I found that unless the best guests have been going for at least 5 years plus,
yeah.
and the really good guests have been going for maybe 10 or 20 years. That tends to be the pattern. And I found that even if you're an open micer or if you've been going for a while, there is something that you'll get from it. Like you either stage presence or something like that. If you're in this game for a while, you're going to get something from it.
No,
And
no, definitely. I mean, every performance, every time you're on stage, you get something. You learn something. It's a new experience. So, of course, how long you're doing it matters.
what have you noticed in terms of like as you've done it through the years? Because I think what I read there, you did it from like at least over 15 years, right?
Yeah, 20. I think it's
20.
20 this year. Yeah.
Did you notice that there were slight changes every 5 years you did comedy? Because I've noticed with myself, like, well, because I'm talking to a lot of great comics, a lot of things are changing quicker, like yourself. But I found that there is something. So I've been doing stand up for about over 10 years or so. And what I have got from it, if anything else, is stage presence from it. That's what I've got from the stand up as a whole and being very comfortable on stage. They're the two things I've got, if nothing else.
Yeah, I think those. I mean, I got both of those too, but I think for me it was kind of the change in my material. You have to understand that when the stand-up comedy scene started in Slovenia, we were the first ones doing it in our country. There was no stand-up scene to talk about, so we were kind of starting it all. We were explaining to people what stand-up comedy is. Every time you would come to perform to a club, people had no idea what's going to happen. So it was an interesting dynamic. So for me, it really changed a lot every 5 years because we were doing different things from performing for 3 or 5 people that came to see us because nobody knew what it was to then suddenly performing in theaters. And that's a completely different ball game. And every 5 years changes a lot, a lot. And for me, it was just about the things I talk about on stage because I grew up in that time a little bit, new experiences, new thoughts, new ideas. So yeah, it does change.
So, what would you say are the positives and negatives of being at the forefront of the development of a comedy scene? Because I spoke to a Malaysian comic, Rizal Van Gazel, and he said the negative was that in Malaysia, him being like a forefront of the creative scene, was that people gave stand up a harder time. But the plus side is it's easy to get bigger gigs, and with the bigger gigs and types of gigs, you learn faster. Not just that's what he said, and you get it's quick access to paid opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, probably quicker access. But I mean, the Slovenian market is still very small, so that's a different ballpark we're talking about. Because I mean, there is only 2 million people in Slovenia. So if from that you kind of gather all the people that would want to come to a theater or watch a stand-up show, you get a really small percentage. So what we're working with, right? So I guess the positives were in the beginning that you had basically nobody to compare yourself to. I guess we were just trying new things. There was really nobody to guide us in a way, so we were doing it ourselves. And it was just interesting times. So I think the negative would probably be that at the beginning you feel like you're responsible for the whole comedy scene in a way that if you do badly, it's going to translate to everybody because that was kind of the consensus back then. Like if you have a comedian that just wasn't having a good day or just maybe didn't have that much experience and people came to the stand-up comedy show for the first time in their life, they would just judge the whole scene. It would be like, okay, Slovenian stand-up comedy sucks. And that was it. And they never wanted to go again. You know. So that was the problem because you felt very responsible all the time.
But does that responsibility put pressure on, and because you're scared of failing, that makes you work harder to make sure you do well?
Well, for me, it wasn't just that. I'm a perfectionist. I always was, which is terrible in stand-up comedy because it can never be perfect. But I tried to find perfection. So with me, it wasn't. I mean, I already got some of that judgment because I'm a woman and a part of the LGBTQ. Part of that, and which in Slovenia was a really big deal. So I already had like so much pressure on me that was just some added pressure. It was just wasn't fair because sometimes I would go into spaces where stand-up comedy was before, but somebody was there before me, and like the guys running the club would be like, no, we don't want to have stand-up comedy Slovenian. We had it, it was bad. Now we don't want any anymore. So yeah, it was kind of hard to get in and try to convince people. And mostly theaters. At the beginning, we couldn't even rent a theater to do a bigger stand-up comedy show yet, because they would say, "You're not professionals. We only work with professional companies
Ah, okay.
to prove ourselves." You couldn't even rent it. It wasn't a money issue. It was, yeah, we're not giving it to you. So that's what we were working with. And now they realize that it's not only quality, but also good business for them. So now it's not a problem anymore. But the beginnings definitely were a struggle.
And through like doing comedy for so many years, what would you say are the key lessons you learned? And what do I want to say on this is how have you found performing comedy in Slovenian, Croatian, and English? Like, how have you found the differences?
Well, I guess it's very different. You cannot just translate your comedy. It doesn't work that way. You have to adapt it to where you're performing. Of course, I cannot talk about the same things because some things may be, good to talk about in Slovenia. I mean, I can't speak about Slovenian politics in Ireland. Nobody would know what I'm talking about. And if they don't have understanding about the topic, they cannot laugh. I mean, it's normal. So yeah, the first it was just discovering which topics from my stand-up comedy are kind of universal that I can do anywhere. At first it was that, and then it was when it's not your language, you kind of think differently. And the languages are so different that maybe there are some things that I can say in English that don't work in Slovenian and vice versa. It's very interesting, but I like that because it kind of keeps me on my toes. It keeps me thinking, and I like that. I like to have that mental gymnastic to work with. I find it fun. I love words and I love sentences. So for me, it's fun. Well, it can be a challenge sometimes, but for me, it really helped when I just stopped worrying about it. I mean, it was really terrible because at first I was like, what if I get a sentence wrong and a word wrong and people won't understand? And at some point, I was like, people will get what I'm saying. Give them a chance. And when I stopped worrying, it got much better.
Hmm. And that's what keeps the comedy thing alive, isn't it? Whatever the case is, you need to find some way of keeping it exciting, or like challenge yourself and keep it. But I'm pretty sure you have it in Slovenia, and we have it in the UK. Is that there's comics that will do the same set and the same sort of thing for 10, 20 years. I mean, it does the job, but I'm interested in how they keep their excitement for it. Do you find that in Slovenia, like how the people keep their excitement for the game when they're doing the same thing for 10, 20 years in a row?
Well, the thing is, you can't really do that in Slovenia. As I said, the market is so small that you come to the same place and they're like, okay, now something new.
Ah,
Like they don't care. They're like, no, I saw you. And that's fine. But then an interesting thing happens when you kind of build a name for yourself. Then you work really hard on making new material, come to the same place. And people are like, but we brought our friends to listen to your old stuff. And I'm like, oh, come on, I worked on this like for 6 months now. Just give me a break. I did something for you guys. But yeah, I mean, you have to produce a lot. The amount of material we produce, compared to other comedians, because sometimes, at the beginning, I would listen to a podcast or something, and the guy would be like, "Yes, so I created like 4 hours of material in the last 10 years," and I'm like, "Well, we you did that in 2 years, just because it goes so fast. I mean, you have to be so on top of it. Like most of the comedians in Slovenia that I know, like have a completely new show, like an hour and a half new special every year, definitely. Like the bigger comedians, which is crazy. We come out producing new shows all the time because we have to.
And how much? Because I that this is a thought that I've come into as well, and my dad's always said this is a thing. People are what they need to be, and if you're in a situation where, and that is that a great thing for the Slovenian scene that you're in that situation where you have to be good, or with a certain you have to brush up because otherwise you could get comfortable, you don't grow, you don't get better. How important would you say is being a comic and getting better and getting good and making it is putting yourself in uncomfortable situations?
Well, I think it depends on the people, how you are with the uncomfortable situations. If you freeze when you're in a comfortable situation, maybe this is not for you, because then it gets terrible. I love it. I love being uncomfortable. What do you think I'm doing in Dublin? I mean, you have to be a little bit insane to build your whole career in Slovenia, and I can comfortably do it there. I mean, I build a name. Most people know me. They either hate me or love me. It doesn't matter, but they know who I am. You know, I mean, I can get on TV. They invite me to interviews, stuff like that. I can do that. Like me saying that I'm thinking about moving to Ireland, but kind of big news in my country. So people were asking me, so where are you going? And I was like, for a new challenge. Because I did what I could, I feel. Maybe there's some things I could do, but the venues I wanted to perform in, I did. The TVs, I don't know. I hosted, I produced TV shows, I wrote for theater, I directed plays, I did it. And now I just felt like I needed something more because that's how I work. I need uncomfortable situations. I need to put myself. For me, one of the scariest things was I went to Toronto and did like 5 minutes in comedy, and it's been probably 15 years since the last time I did an open mic. And I was scared. I was panicking. I was like, oh my God, 5 minutes. Because now I'm used to having my own shows where do like an hour and a half or 2 hours even, and I can kind of build a story, but this is 5 minutes. It's completely different. It gets your mind working in a completely different way. And I love that. I need that. That's why I'm here. I still want to try things that scare me. I think that's good for me.
What do you think makes you a comedian that chases the uncomfortable as opposed to others that don't chase the uncomfortable? Because people like to be comfortable. I've seen it in comedy, I've seen it in a lot of different art forms. A lot of people don't want to take risks, they want to take the established route or they want to do what in the comfort zones. They like to moan about things, but they're not too bad where they have to make changes.
Oh, uh, I guess I'm worse when I'm bored. My mind stops working when I get too comfortable. I just need a challenge. I want to challenge myself. I want to keep growing. And when I have a feeling that I can't grow anymore, that sometimes something's making me comfortable. For me, the thing when I'm like, okay, I need to change something is when I stop writing or stop creating new stuff. Then I'm like, okay, something, because for me, when I get too comfortable, and if you're just okay with it, with everything, just okay, then what can we talk about? I can come on stage and be like, oh, did you notice the weather is fine? And I guess the traffic is fine also. You know, for me, it's just new challenges. I need it. That's how my brain works, you know.
And following on from what you're saying there, what would you say is a movie scene, TV scene, or quote that represents this? And who is someone outside of comedy that represents your motto of like challenging yourself and pushing yourself?
I really have no idea.
Oh, okay.
I have no idea who's at the same level of crazy as me. Because you have to be interesting person to that. I don't want to say completely crazy, but so I don't want to compare anybody to me. But yeah, I guess there are many people. I mean, that's like something like people in sports usually do. You keep challenging yourself. If you don't find motivation, then you just, I guess, don't grow, don't work anymore. I don't know. Do you have anything in mind? Any quote for a movie? Because I'm not a big movie person, actually.
Okay, yeah, it's just something that sort of came up to me recently because I interviewed a great guest, and it's something that I put on there. And I watched the movie The Departed, and there's a great little scene at the end where he says she took the bit on, like he says he likes to make the environment, he likes to make his environment um affected by him. He wants rather than it affect him, and he wants no, sorry, the saying is he wants his environment to be a product of him rather than the other way around. And he says that with a lot of things in life, you got to take it. There's an opening segment in the part that I like, and that's what inspired me recently because I've with a few things in common in that. I remember last year I was trying to chase a few things in the traditional way, like chasing external validation from others. But then I've been looking at certain things and I'm thinking, you know, if you're waiting for someone else to give you an opportunity or tell you or this and that, you may wait forever and the door may never open. It's nice to have those things, but you got to go and make it happen for yourself. Okay, a door isn't open in the way that you want or this and that. You got to find another way around it. And you got to be creative. You got to take chances. You got to take risks, and that, that's 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 what's happened with.
Well, I guess, yeah, that is what you need to do. I mean, it was similar in that way, because for me, that was, okay, let's go somewhere else. I cannot just be sitting in Slovenia and be like, well, maybe an international producer will come to Slovenia. They never will. This is Slovenia. I mean, nobody speaks Slovenian. What I mean is just, I'm not delusional and thinking then I'll just come to the Irish scene and everybody will be like, oh, Martina, you're exactly what we were all waiting for. Thank you for saving our comedy. Not at all. They're amazing and brilliant people here. And you just want to work and learn from the best and, just feel that feeling again. And maybe I don't have really a quote from TV, but for me is from a book from Jacqueline Carey. She has this series of books. And one um, quote that I really liked about it, all knowledge is worth having. So it does, for me, it was like, it doesn't matter what happens, if it's good, if it's bad. You learn something from it, it's the knowledge. And for me, like every time something bad happens, I know I start healing when I say, okay, this is going to be a great joke someday. Let me just get through it, but this is going to be amazing on stage. And for me, it works. For me, it's kind of free therapy, or actually a therapy that other people pay me to do, which is even better.
Hmm. And when you're doing, no, that's fine. When you've been growing up in the comedy scene and you've been learning, what would you say are the common bits of advice that you hear from other comics that you, through listening and through your own experience, you think is BS? So for me, one thing that I have heard from other comics when I had growing up was people saying, just gig as much as you can. Okay, I do agree that to an extent, but not fully. I think it depends on the kind of gigs you're doing. Like if you're just doing the same kind of gigs all the time and you're gigging a lot, do you learn anything from them? No. You got to do different rooms. You got to do, then you learn from it. Or it depends on the kind of gigs you're doing as well. It's not just gig, or right. There's got to be some substance behind it. That was what I was told before, and that's what I think is a load of crap.
Yeah. Um, Let me understand. For me is when somebody says it just wasn't the right audience for you. I think that's bullshit. The audience is the audience. They came. Most of them came to have fun. I'm talking about the normal thing, not like a corporate gig that you're doing and everybody's bored there and hate their lives and the boss, so they're not ready to laugh. But the audience came. It's your job to make them laugh. If they're not laughing, it's not their fault. It's your fault. And I hate people that are kind of, after someone has a really bad set, like some people would come to him and be like, it's not your fault. They just didn't get your type of humor. They didn't do it that way to this audience. You have to know what you're doing and who you're performing for. And that's your job. I just don't like the fake, no, you're good. They just don't get you. Because I don't think it's making, I don't think they're doing that person a favor. And I really hate advice that nobody asked for. I'm like, if nobody asks me for advice, I'm going to be quiet. It's not my job. But you have some comedians coming to younger comedians all the time, just telling them what they think they did wrong in their shows. I'm like, nobody asked you. If somebody asks me, then I might give advice if I feel that I have anything of value to add. If I don't, then I'm quiet, you know. And I wish more people would do that. If nobody asks, just don't.
Most of the time, when I've had someone try and give me advice that's insistent on doing it without me asking, are people that I wouldn't get advice from. But that's most of the time, not all the time, but a lot of the times that's been the situation. The people that I want to get advice from, I have to go and ask them for advice, and they'll give it to me. But the ones, yeah,
Exactly, and exactly that's what I'm talking about. It's usually very bad advice because I'm sitting there and listening. I'm like, just please stop speaking. I mean, I don't say anything. It's not my thing. It's not my job, or not my place even. But yeah, it's usually, as you said, the people that I'm like, you just, you work on your stuff and then maybe start giving advice because you suck. But I'm not going to say that.
you're brutal.
I'm just like sitting there and thinking in my head that please don't.
Is part of the sense, is there a sense of when someone does that that they're not happy with something, so they try and take it out on someone else? Like there's a bit of an insecurity there, so they
Probably some insecurity, also some ego that they maybe get from maybe doing it a little bit longer. You know what I mean? And they just feel that that gives them the authority to talk maybe to other people that don't are not doing it as long or something, and they feel like they need to take like a mentorship role or something. But for me, you know, it, there is something about how long you do it, but then again, some people are really natural talents that, I mean, you see on stage for the fifth time and you're like, oh, yeah, I can't believe this person just only started, so it's not all about that. But yeah, I think it's insecurity and I think there's a lot of ego in play also.
okay. And this, let me know what your thoughts are on this. But I watched this video yesterday, and it's a comic in America who's been going for many years. Have you seen Kill Tony or the King Kong show in London?
No, haven't seen it, no.
Well, there's this guy called, what's his name? I just watched this video just now. What's his name? Yeah, Richard Williams. So for anyone that's listening, the Kill Tony show is extremely popular across the world. It's got millions of subscribers. And what happens, he got famous because I think he was a support act of Joe Rogan. And it's a online podcast live where they get comedians to come up. There's a panel of older comedians going for years, and they review their act. And if you do well, you get some big spots, and you can get lots of views and followers, and you can really build a career. Like Hans Kim, I remember he's famous now, but I gigged him in New York in a lowly open mic night, and he's become famous for it. But the point is saying most of the time, most comedians do badly, and very few actually make any use from it. And it's a bit like a humiliation thing where the negative. So this guy called Richard Williams says that Kill Tony, the bad thing about it is you're getting more experienced comics making fun of comics who are just starting, and it's sort of bullying in a way, and it's not helpful for comics coming up because so many little comics have built a success from that. And I just want to say, what are your thoughts on that?
I think it's a very complicated situation. Yeah. Um, I really don't like it when other comedians make fun of comedians that are not as experienced. It's like a personal thing because I think people can grow and change. But then again, people go willingly to the show format. You know what I mean? You know what to expect. You know what's going to happen. So I think the fault is in both sides. I mean, someone's doing the show, but you don't have to go. You can always decide what you want to do. And I think that's a really important lesson also in your career to realize that sometimes for some things you have to say no. What that no will be is different for everybody. I have a couple of no's that I always do, and I did for 20 years, and it wasn't a money issue or whatever, but some things you just cannot pay me to do, or invite me to, and then I'll come. So, I guess it's both sides. And if it works for somebody, if they're sure they're good enough, I mean, why so many people actually go to talent shows when they're not good singers? What can I tell you?
what how important is it to, would you say, have things that you're not willing to do as a comedian? And what, may I ask what they are? But if you don't want to say what they are, no worries.
No, I mean, it's not, I, I can't tell you how important it is because it's, of course, it depends on the person. For me, it's political parties. It doesn't matter if they align with my point of view. They can't pay me to perform for them. And that's because as soon as I receive money from any of them, I think I lose the credibility to make fun of anybody else.
Ah,
Something stupid. Because then all the time people can come to me and be like, well, of course you're shitting on the other people because you got paid from them. So that for me is a huge deal. And in even organizations that I think are not doing good job, that are crooked or whatever, it's just that's a no-no for me. So yeah, things like that, somewhere where I could lose my credibility because I'm pretty much known that I say what I want on stage, and you can't shut me up. So that's kind of scary for some people, some televisions, But I decided that I want to be who I am on stage, and if you like it, fine. If you don't, nothing I can do about it.
what is the political correctness like in Slovenia? Because I know that in the UK and America, there have been quite a few comics that got cancelled, and even one comic I know of, I think Count Dracula, got arrested for it. And people complain about comedians being cancelled and not getting spots here, but some of the comedians who've been cancelled are still successful and they have a big following and make a good living from doing comedy. And is that really cancellation? I don't know. But with if you go to other parts of the world like Malaysia or India, Pakistan, when they get cancelled, they get put in prison or they get killed or all sorts of more severe things. And part of my thoughts on when people are complaining about getting cancelled here, I mean, we should in the West, we should be lucky. We're lucky that we still get to be alive and not severely put in prison.
Of course, I mean we've got cancel culture, not death and prison culture, which better. Of course, there is some cancel culture, but definitely not. I mean, Slovenia is we're still working on what's supposed to be said on stage or not. I think every comic has their own limitations about what they're saying. For me, I can talk about most things. For me, it's not about what you talk about, but how you talk about it. I think it's very important. If you're punching down or you're punching up, it's very important. If you're not picking on the weak people, or the people you imagine are weaker than you, I think that's important. But then, of course, maybe probably there are some people in Slovenia that think I shouldn't be talking about the things I talk about. I mean, mostly because I'm a woman, so there are definitely some things
Oh,
that I'm not supposed to talk about. So it's a different thing. But no, we're not as America or the UK. We can still, I think, get away with more things here, but not only comedians. The things being spoken about every day in everyday um, language or even politics is still I mean, maybe we would need a little bit more change, but it's always about, so where does art end and hate begin? It's always a thin line, and it's really hard to judge it. And then you have to think about who's judging it, and when does it go too far? And those are hard questions. It's going to be have to be answered, next years, I guess.
okay. And for as you mentioned, Slovenia is a small country, and a lot of people don't hear lots of things about it. But we spoke before the podcast that you perform in the Balkans and you perform in Slovenia. What are things that people need to be aware of culturally of Slovenia and the Balkans that people aren't aware of, and what do people need to be aware of when performing comedy in Slovenia and the Balkans?
Well, Slovenia in the way that they laugh or they warm is compared to Austria, for example. And nobody ever said, "Oh my God, go and gig in Austria. It's perfect." I mean, the Austrians are such funny people. all the greatest. It's just like people from Balkans. Like they say, the more south you go in the Balkans, the people are more open. So in Croatia more open, and in Serbia definitely more open. And that was my experience also. I mean, before I went to perform in Croatia or Serbia, even for the first time, I've been doing stand-up comedy for a while already, like years and years in Slovenia. So the first time I came to Serbia, I was shocked because the way they react to everything and the way they laugh, it was so much louder and clapping and screaming and stuff like that. I was completely in shock. I thought something was wrong with people. I had no idea what's going on. There are some comedians from the Balkans that come to perform to Slovenia and say they feel like they've been punished. I mean, seriously, because you could be in a space with Slovenians. I mean, they would laugh or something, but you would have like a couple of people just sitting there staring at you the whole night, not cracking a smile. And I'll be all in my head about it. I was like, oh my God, these people hate me. Like there's a couple of them in the audience that clearly hate me or something. And then after the show, they'll come to you and be like, this was an amazing show. I really loved it. I'm like, show it to your face. I don't know, have a conversation with yourself. And then the first time I came to Serbia, I was so shocked. Like, I would be walking on the street, people were honking behind me. I was like, oh my God, they want to kill me. Are they going to shoot me? What's going on? They were like, you bad Slovenian. I was like, thank you, guys, I guess. So there is a big difference. But yeah, you have to understand that each country is different. Slovenia, Croatia, Serbia, if you go perform to those places, it's going to be a different experience everywhere. But they're really, nice people, love them. Not so much heckling going on because there's not really a part of the culture to do that in a way. But you'll know if you suck, which is good, I think.
Hmm,
You get feedback. You get that. So yeah. I mean, I love performing in all of those countries.
okay. And with the Slovenian comedy scene as a whole, what would you say that you dislike? Okay, no, the two questions. This, what do you dislike and like about the scene as a whole? What do you love about it, and what do you think needs to change about it? And one other question is, how have you? No, you've already answered this. I was going to ask how have you adjusted your humor to different nations, but you mentioned it earlier how you adjusted it, so I need to ask it again. But yeah, what would you say are the great things, and what would you say things that need to change about Slovenian comedy scene?
I mean, what's great about Slovenian comedy scene is that we have people doing it for a very long time with lots of experience that are doing great shows. And I'm really glad about that. Seriously, the Slovenian stand-up scene went from nothing. When I'm saying nothing, there wasn't a single club that you could go perform in before people started doing it in different parts of Slovenia. So I have much respect for my colleagues from all over Slovenia. They did amazing things. So we came from doing shows with 7 or 8 people performing on the bill, everybody like maybe 10 minutes to now people having their solo shows and selling out sport arenas. I mean, in 20 years, that's amazing progress. We came from nobody taking Slovenian or comedians seriously to, now selling out theaters, which is that's I'm very proud of everybody, for sticking to it because it was never easy. And now we have a couple of professional stand-up comedians that actually make a living from it, which I think is very good. Um, I guess the downside of performing in a small market is though that there's some jealousy involved in it, because there is so little space that even feels that it feels like even less space when you're a small market, Um, you just I believe people feel like the resources of the people are limited, so it gets more competitive sometimes, in a bad way. Um, I think there is space for everybody because everybody loves a different, kind of humor. If somebody loves me, it doesn't mean, that you're gonna hate everybody else. They might like different people, and that's completely okay. That's why we have, comedians for every flavor. And I guess, of course, to be the scene growing, it got more relentless in that way. But it's still, just looking back for what we did. in a relatively short time. I'm very proud that we have clubs. I mean, now you can find an open mic going on in Slovenia, like everywhere. You've got younger people doing it. You had some people come from the theater or the film world to try it. So now it's gotten big. So, I'm very proud of it.
Okay. And how has comedy impacted you? Like, how did it change you as a person? I
Oh,
know it's changed me.
yeah, it definitely changed me. Um, I guess it gave me an outlet for my creativity. I've been doing something creative. I mean, I was writing since I was 11, wrote and directed my first play when I was 16, I guess. And I was trying to find something to really get excited about because I was writing and everything, but I really wanted to have this direct conversation instead of comedy. And I mean, and stand-up comedy gives you that. I mean, you're responsible for everything you do on stage. It's your text. It's you. It's your decisions doing it. And do you know how rare it is actually? That you have nobody behind your back telling you what you need to do, what you have to do. I mean, in a workplace, you have to listen to somebody. There's something, but you're on a stage. You're responsible. That's it. That's you. You decide what you're going to do with that time. That's amazing. And you've got, in that moment, all the power in the world. You've got the microphone, so you're the loudest in the space. You've got the light on you, so you're, the lightest thing in that space. You have everything set up so people naturally look at you because, as primates, we always look at the shiniest thing in the room. That's why always people watch TV when it's on, even if they don't want to. I mean, you have everything set up for people to listen to you, and it's all about you, what you're going to do with your time, what you're going to do with your minutes, what you're going to talk about. If you have an audience, what is it that's so important to you to speak of? I think that's amazing. And once I realized that that means also a huge responsibility, it definitely changed me. I started to be very conscious about what I'm saying, what are the topics I really want to talk about, what I feel is important. And that definitely changed me.
Okay. And for anyone that's listening right now, there's a lot of common advice that goes in comedy, but each of us as comedians is an individual with our own life journeys. What would you say are your words of wisdom to approach the comedy journey?
Ugh, I've got no wisdom. No, no. For me, really is be yourself. I mean, in the end, that's what people want. If they want to hear jokes that they can read, anywhere in the internet, they're gonna find them. If they want to, hear stupid jokes about blondes, they can find them alphabetically, probably somewhere listed. Just be yourself. Talk about yourself, about your story, about your experience. We all need to feel connected to somebody. We all want to just know that we're not alone about what we're feeling, what we're seeing, what we're thinking. I think that's why stand-up comedy is important. You know, you have somebody in front of you that's talking about something, and you're like, yeah, I get that. Sometimes I feel alone too. Sometimes I have those problems also. And it's interesting when you share an experience how less lonely you get. So my advice is, just be yourself, because in the end, then you won't really struggle writing because it's you you're talking about. You're not, struggling to find the best joke. You're talking about something real that, you turn into a joke structure. And for me, that's it. Just be honest, because people know when you're bullshitting them. They don't maybe don't can't put their finger on what's wrong, but they know when you're bullshitting them. And for me, it just means being me.
And that's what I like about stand up. But yeah, I feel that's what stand up has over a lot of other art forms. Yeah, it's great. It's great.
Yeah.
Now, following on from no, and for anyone that's listening right now, how do they find out about you?
Well, there's my webpage, Martina Ipsa with an S, IPSA.com. You can see my bio there or something. And I promise I'm going to post more English videos, but then I don't ever like any videos that I make. As I said, I'm a complete perfectionist and a crazy person, and people that work with me hate me because I never want to post any of my videos. And people are like, well, will the people see you? And I'm like, I don't know. So I guess you'll have to come to my shows because I don't ever post anything. But in case I do, it's going to be on my YouTube channel, but it probably won't be. But still, on Instagram, I'm also Martina Ipsa, and well, if you got some shows for me in the UK, by the way, just get me there. I'll fly. I'm in Dublin. Close. I mean, you're not European Union anymore, so but I can smuggle you stuff from Europe if you need something. I don't know how I can bribe you. Anyway, but yeah, just follow me. Webpage, YouTube, Instagram would be perfect. And come to one of my shows to see if I'll suck in English.
All right, guys, you know where to find out Martina. I hope you've enjoyed the episode, and I'll see you at the next episode.